for joining me today. I will be making 2 panels for a friend of mine. The window size is 131, so with turnings I think each panel has to be about 68 inches wide. So it's 1.5 drops in each panel, and then I believe it's 108 long. Now, when I was advising her on the fabric and the yardage, I didn't realise she was going to get something with such a large pattern repeat. I might have to think on my feet with this one. So let's get on with it. Now, unlike the lining, I have a pattern repeat. So the flowers go up. I'm going to roll this out and try to find where the bottom is. I need 104 inches, which means I'm going to measure first and then work out where I need to have my turnings. That's 30, 60, 90. I'll measure down 14 to give me my 104. Now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to bring this down to see where the top of my next curtain needs to come to, which is, I mean that's tight, that doesn't even give me 4 inches. So I'm going to cut my 4 inches there. Now, because this is a pattern repeat, I'm going to count the pattern repeats. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4. Actually, if I go down there, is 5. I'm going to take it from here, I think, because that's nice and easy to remember. So I'm going to take it to here. That's 5 pattern repeats. I'm going to carry out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Mark that. 1, 2, 3, shy. That kind of blows it for me. Sometimes you have to think things through. There's 1. Double check where it falls here. If I take that to there, I've got enough for some turnings. So I might just have to put a false head on it. Alright, I'm going to recheck that to make sure I've got at least 104 inches. It's a little bit close, but it's doable. I've got the part that I want to match it up to, which is here. I'll stretch the fabric out so I can find the corresponding pattern, which might be this one here. Actually, I think it might be this one here. I've measured down, double checked it. That is my pattern repeat for this side, and that's where it's going to be sewn in because it has a pattern repeat there. I'm going to pull it out like this, and I'm going to cut across all the way to the other side. Sometimes I follow the weft thread, but because this has a pattern on it, I don't want to cut it wonky to the pattern. If you're a bit short on fabric, you don't want to risk that. That's my second panel. I'm just going to pull down and measure for the third one. So the pattern comes back to here. So this is the little length I'm going to be taking off. I'll be folding it like I did before across to there to make sure that I have a straight line. Pull it as tight as you can, straighten up the top and the bottom. I'm just going to cut across. Now, I could cut the last one to the right length, but I'm not going to because you make curtains from the bottom up. I am just going to fold the side lengths up together, because this is another thing about a fabric that has a pattern. I need to have one of these lengths cut in half. Unlike a lining fabric where you can get things mixed up a little bit, I'm going to pull this out and make sure that I can get my half cut all the way up, and then I can sew it together without having bulks of fabric getting in the way. Make sure your selvages are together, make sure your fabric is flat. You could measure from one side to the other, which is fine, but I'm going to get the same result doing it this way. Pull it out and straighten it, make sure the fabrics are running smoothly against each other like that, and carry on up. As I was cutting, I realised it's called Belle Maison Design, which means beautiful house design, and then it's printed in Spain, so that's quite interesting. Well, it is to me because I'm from that kind of neck of the woods. Now, when you're doing curtains, always start at the bottom. I'm just going to hold that one there for the second. This is the fabric I'm putting on top. What you need to do is make sure that you have folded over at least 1/4 of an inch of the pattern so that you can lay it on top. And when you do that, make sure that you have ironed a nice crisp line in it. If you don't, you're not going to be able to do this very well. So I'm laying that on top like that. Lift that foot up and realign everything under there like that. Set the foot down and your needle should be going along the line that you have ironed in. I'm going to go forward and back just to hold it. Straighten both fabrics out as you go. All you have to do is line each section up. I think that's probably to there. Fold it over, keep it secure, and sew along your line. Now I'm going to put my needle down, straighten my fabric out like that, lay my new piece up on top, which I think goes about there, fold it over and secure it. Make sure everything is flat and sew. When you get close, put your needle down, open everything up, straighten it all out, not necessarily in that order, but make sure that you've done everything you need to. Line up the next part of the pattern, which is to there, fold it over and sew up your line. When you get close, put your needle down, straighten everything up. The straighter and flatter your fabric, the easier this is to do. Line everything up again. I do it in small sections, it's easier then, and then sew. Keep it relatively taut. If it's really thick fabric, only go to right angles. Line it up. If it's narrower, you can go closer. Because you're trying to see how it's going to look as the seam opens up. Try not to let it slip. Don't forget, fabric gets heavy, so you want to make sure as it's going through it's flat and stable. I always check to see what my joins are like before I start pressing, and they seem to have gone in quite well, so I'm pleased with that. If they were too far out or up and down, I would realign and then rejoin it, but I think that's fine. It's only slightly off. That'll do. The next thing I need to do with these is they have black writing here. I know the fabric's quite thick, but if I held it against the light, this shows up. So I can do one of two things. In this case, I am going to cut this back to about 1/2 inch from the sewed line so that I cut the words off. I don't want those showing through. I could put a zigzag on here, but it's not going to make any difference. They're lined, and because they are lined, it will hide anything. If they were unlined, then I would do a fell seam, which would be, I would cut that side off and then fold this over the top like a denim seam. But because there's lining on it, I'm not going to worry about that. Just make sure that you've got at least 1/2 inch seam allowance, because you need to iron that flat. Now, I measured these curtains up 3¼ inches, but I want to make sure that this looks exactly the same. So here's the pattern match here. I'll iron that in, and then I will iron it into the center. Usually I measure them up 4 inches and fold them down 2, so across there, but these ones I did 3¼ because I'm shy on the top. So having worked out where the line goes, I'm going to press it in here, pull it out and make sure that it's the same here for the next pattern repeat across the base of the curtains, pulling the pattern repeat away from where I am ironing so it stays straight. Then all I'm going to do is pull that over so I can get to where I've got the join and press this open. I don't have to go all the way up at the moment, I'll do that when I do the sides. Fold that up, make sure my pattern repeat is where I want it, which is about there. Pull the two pieces away from each other like that, make sure it's taut, and then iron across. So that matches, and then to here. If I'm not sure, I do it this way, so I'll make sure that that is where that is, and then roll it down slightly or roll it up slightly, just to make sure that that's, ouch, oh that hurt. Can't tell you how many times I've done that before. too many, and then open it up. Again, just pull it out to that end and be done. Okay, so I've matched this pattern down, steam that into place. Try not to burn myself this time. Move that across, flatten that out so I can get there. So I've got my pattern match across, and again, fold that all down so it looks even and iron into place. It's easier to do it this way than to roll it up and then roll it up again. Pull that across, fold it all down to where the pattern repeat needs to be, like that. Looks even, and again just iron it into place. Use plenty of steam if you can. You might have to do it on a lower setting. This is on cotton, so it can take the heat. Stretch it out, fold it all in, and iron across. Pop this underneath for the hem, and I'm going to top stitch the hem all the way across. Keep it flat, keep everything even, and you shouldn't need to put any pins in. If you want to put pins in because you're not sure, please do. You should be okay. If you iron things in, you often don't need the pins. And I'm going to just go all the way across the bottom here. As I come into the seam, I make sure that the seam is straight. If, say, I've pulled this too much, it means that the end isn't going to go in straight, and you really want both ends of your curtains to be as straight as possible. If they walk a little bit, it's not a problem. If there's about an inch over, then you need to go back and start again and probably pin it to make sure it goes in right. Now these curtains need to be 131.5 wide, because that's the rod. I'm going to make that 132, just round it up, it's easier that way. I got 132 for the width of the rod, divided by 2 for the curtains, which equals 66. These are flat headed, so I don't have to add anything in. Now I need 4 inches, 2 inches either side for the returns, equals 70. So each curtain panel has to be 70 inches wide. Now I know that I've got more than 70 inches. Fold back here to 2 inches all the way down. That's 2 inches to there. The fabric repeat is quite long, so I'm going to have to measure it down to there. There we go. So I've cut some of that off. I'm going to fold that in and give myself a 1 inch hem allowance along the side of the curtain, or thereabouts. Just roll that in as I go. Move it all along. I can either work a pattern repeat out or measure it, and I'm measuring it from where the print stops, so I know that it's equal. Actually, I've got my pattern repeat in line now. I'll continue cutting that down, folding it as I go. So I know that I need this to be 70 inches, so I'm going to take it from there, measure it for 30 inches, put a pin in there. Always work from the wide panel across, so the lead edge of each curtain panel across. That's 30 to there is 60, and then my last 10 inches. Okay, I'm actually going to fold that there so I can't make a mistake. I'm going to pin that into place like that. I've got my pattern repeat here and here. Make sure that I steam that into place like that, and then make sure you don't cut the bottom layer. Line that up with my 2 inches and cut it all the way across, and I'm going to fold that in like I did on the other side for my side hem. What I've done is I've put my seam on top of my seam. This is the short side that I'm going to put in first, and measure across, put a little snick there. I don't want it to be folded in, I just want it flat. Remove that one. I'm going to measure up all the way. Do each curtain separately, because the other curtain on the short side I was just taking 7 inches off, and this one I'm taking 9. I'm going to take the 9 inches off all the way up this side of the curtain, because then I know that that's going to fit in. I've just put this about an inch above the base, lined the lining in to the edge of the fold the fabric over. I'm going to pin it into position on this side. This is actually when I miss my huge table, because I would have it all laid out flat. But on the other hand, it is showing you that you do not need all that room to make curtains, you've just got to be vigilant about how you're putting everything together. So put that in there, line that up there. Don't stretch the lining, pull it into place like that, smooth it out, and then carry on pinning to the top of this curtain by small increments. Lay it flat, bring the lining in. The lining for this side is exactly the right width, so I don't have to worry about anything. All you have to do is make sure it's even when you put it in there. This side I'm going to pop under here, line it up across the bottom, forward and back. Now you don't have to do that if you don't want to. I always do, I think it looks neater. And then I'm going to keep the side of my foot here on the inside along here and sew all the way to the top. Keep it as even as you can. Push the lining into there and then stretch it out. Keep the fabric as even as you can. Work from this corner to the seam. It has moved slightly, but that's fine. And then all the way across, keeping it flat. You can pin it if you want to, that's fine, to the other side. Once I've got it to the other side, like this, fold this over like I did on the other hem. Take my scissors and make a snippet. Slide that away and see where that comes. And this is 2.5 inches, so I'm going to take 2.5 inches off all the way up. Just like I did on the other side, just remove it if you don't need it. Just as you did, fold your lining into the seam. I've allowed a little bit extra height because when I sew from the top down, that should take that down to within an inch. I've given a little bit of allowance to it and then pin. Straighten that out, pull that in like that, fold and pin. Nice and easy. So I'm going to make my way all the way to the top of this length. This time I'm going to start at the top of the curtain like this, push that in. I'm just going to go forward because this is going into the heading, so I don't need to worry too much. Pull that out. Straighten your fabric out if you can and push that into the seam a little bit better because it had pulled out slightly. And I'm going to carry down the length of the curtain. I'm not going to pull the fabrics against each other because they invariably walk anyway. I'll make my way to the bottom. I'm just going to come down to the corner, lift the foot up, turn the fabric and push anything that might show from underneath up and sew across and reverse. My friend told me that she wanted them 104 inches. I asked her if that was from the top or bottom of the curtain rail and she said the top. So then I asked how big the curtain rod is and she said 1.5 inches. Sorry about this, I have a cat and a dog playing right under here and they'll just come back. So the rod is 1.5 inches and then I have to make a little bit of an allowance of that too. So 104 length minus 1.5 equals, I'm actually going to do them 102.25 inches. It's a bit of an odd length, but by the time I've put the tape on, it should bring it about 1/4 inch up off the floor, I'm thinking. I'm going to make it 102 length. I'm going to measure these at 3 points. I'm going to measure it a little bit over. So measure that up 30 inches and put a pin there. Make sure you don't pin it all the way through. Fold that over. Measure that side up 30 inches. Make sure you don't pin it all the way through. So I'm going to measure this side up 30 inches. So that I don't put it all the way through, I'm going to put it against that edge. Fold those out so they're nice and even again. I'm just going to roll it up to there so I can get to both ends easily. Use that to push all the fabric up. And again, measure up 30 inches. Pop that through. Make sure you do not go all the way through. Fold that over. Measure up that side 30 inches. So now I've got 60 inches on the length. And again, measure up my 30 inches from there along to there, all the way through that fold. Straighten everything out and roll it up again. Measure up 30. Now this takes me to 90 inches to there. I always take my time to do this. There to there, again 90 inches. This side to 90 inches. So if I want 102, just 12 inches to the top. Again 12 inches here, and then 12 inches on the other side. I straightened the lining a little bit better on the top because it went down a little bit more than I wanted it to. I pulled the fabric out. My pin here and my pin here are at the top of the fold. I'll do that and stretch. The pattern has stayed really even, and it should do because there was no reason for it to change. I'm just going to iron there, pull it across and iron to the other side. I'm going to unhook that one and press that with plenty of steam. I take my measurements a little ways in from the outside edge because sometimes the sewing here causes the fabric to cinch up a bit. This one, try to go either side if it's a centre seam. If there was two lengths in them, I would have divided my curtain panel here. That's to there. Nice and tight again. Start where my pin is there and then just pull it out to the side and across. So the wider the curtains or the looser the weave, the more places you need to pin these. I have to have this dropped down an inch, which takes it to there, and I have plenty of room. So what I'm going to do is cut all the way across at 1.5 inches, making sure that I've only got the top fabric. I'm going to cut across, and I'm going to put a few more pins in along the way so that I don't have to worry about the lining moving up and down, because that should be exactly where I need it to be. I have this tape to put on because what happens is her clips clip onto the top of this tape. All I'm going to do is I'm going to fold the tape over about an inch on that edge. My 1 inch mark is here, so I'm going to pop that down on my 1 inch mark like that, and I'm going to just hold that tape forward, back to secure it. I don't want to keep the tape too tight, I'm just going to keep it even and sew. Remove my pins as I go along. Flatten out the fabric, keep it even and sew. If you think your lining has moved, just push it into place, keep everything even and sew all the way across the top like this. Now one side of this tape always stretches, it's like zipping. It's on a roll, and this has been on a roll a long time because I brought it with me from the UK about 30 years ago. There we go. Check the lining is in the top, check that that's straight, and then make your way across the top of the curtains. As I get closer to the end, I'm going to cut this. As I get to the end, I'm going to roll it underneath like that. Push that back slightly because I don't want the tape to be over the end. I want it just behind 1/8 of an inch. You don't want to be able to see it from the front of the curtains. As I get closer, I can adjust it. There we go. I think that's probably it. When I get to the end, I'm going to turn this around and just bring this into place like that. Sew down and reverse. That stops anything looking like it's not lined up. I'm going to go back to the beginning and line that up so it's even there. I'll get it now so it doesn't get sewn in by accident. Always cut your tails. Okay, so I'm going to pop that under here. I'm going to go forward and back. Often twists because it's quite heavy and you don't have that much under your foot. Don't worry about it. It's 104 inches, well 102 inches up in the air, nobody's going to really notice. And then again, just go all the way across, catching the bottom of the tape in place as I go along. It wants to walk, so if I go this way it will stay in place. Sometimes you can get it to go even, but at the moment it just wants to go the other way. When I get to the other end, I'll go forward and back and finish off. Now the top of the curtains look like that. They're going to be flat. She didn't want any extra fabric in them. Thank you for joining me on this small project. I think these are going to look stunning in her house. The colours are bright and breezy. I'll get her to send me a photo so I can tag it onto the film so you know what they look like. If you want to see more from me, please subscribe, hit the bell button, and a few thumbs up will be brilliant. And in the meantime, take care. See you later. Ciao. This gives you an idea of what the curtains look like when they're hanging. They actually touch the floor. I could have put a deeper hem on if I'd known that they were going to be that long, but that's fine. She's really happy with them. And that's what they look like when they're closed. She wanted them looking very flat and very plain. I think they look gorgeous.